AITA for ending my relationship via text after he refused to hold my hand in public? I, F37, am not originally from the city where I live. I came here for a better career and financial opportunity to be able to fund my startup 10 years ago. I've made sacrifices like any other business person and was rejected until I figured things out. It took me a few years. I took clients and saved enough to be able to qualify for JVs and financing. Long story short, I completed the process. I purchased 2 foreclosed properties 4 years apart. The first one was purchased with money that I saved from my bonuses. The second one I got after becoming very financially stable. I live part-time in the first property, and I'm renting out the second one. Both are very modest, but I've made them very clean-looking and livable. The rent money from the second property has allowed me to net enough income for a very good emergency fund. I got romantically involved with James, M35, almost 2 years ago. He's been very supportive of my career since I do some traveling. He has never acted insecure or criticized my ambitions, and I felt very lucky. We both have kids from past relationships and have agreed that we want to build the best for them, individually. A few months ago, he started asking questions. It was very sporadic, and I chalked it up to him, trying to understand my job better. He's not from my industry, nor works for the private sector, but he has always wanted to start a business. We had extended conversations about our future. I'm following my original plan to fully move back to my city, but I wanted to create a happy medium as I value our relationship. He said he wanted to find a job in another city and get better opportunities. I supported his decision. I don't know if I made a mistake in taking him as my +1 on career-based dinners and events. Everyone brings their husbands or wives or anyone they can consider as a companion. These are social events but for career people. After a few months, he became incredibly invested in my social circle and I didn't like it, not because I see anything wrong with letting him meet some people from my daily work life but because he started doing some name-dropping to his own friends and family. He also began to make unfavorable comparisons between me and my own colleagues and complained that I don't dress the way XYZ does. So I dropped him as my +1 because he was stressing me out. I also had to tell him to stop asking me about my rental because I was uncomfortable discussing side income. I drive an old SUV. It's not as shiny and nice looking as it did originally, but it works just fine to drive locally. He never complained about it until we went for a drive a few weeks back and we stopped at a kiosk by the side of the road and he parked my car a bit far. He was driving. I asked him to drive closer, but he said my car was embarrassing. This created a before and after feeling to our relationship. I wouldn't think of criticizing his car, which isn't new either. I allowed him to drive my car because his has AC problems, and I told him the difference between the way he treats my less than fancy possessions versus the way I treat his. He smirked, but I think he was embarrassed, so I let it go. He asked me if I would agree to get him an investor or invest myself in the business that he wants to create. I was caught off guard and said I needed to think about it. I did talk to him about it later on and was through about why I can't do it. Owning a business is very demanding. He needs to be an expert or at least have solid knowledge of whatever he does to become valuable to investors. I don't want to go through the ordeal of finding investment all over again as I'm closing that chapter, and I would need to write his plan and basically create a business for him on paper. He will not be able to pay my rates, so it's likely a sweat equity deal, but I would need to put long hours down in order to earn it, get an agreement and give up time that I want to devote to my family. I think he needs to do the legwork on his own. When I told him, he seemed very put off, like was a bad girlfriend. Fast forward, and he became distant. It might be because he was embarrassed that I said no, but I can't shake the idea that he finds me less valuable after that conversation. James is a very affectionate person, but he stopped saying that he loves me unless I asked him. He mentioned that he wants a helpful woman by his side. I took the hint and clarified that I couldn't go around asking my contacts for money for his business. He said if I'm afraid to ask, then it's because I'm insecure or my colleagues don't respect me. I was very irritated, and we ended up having an argument that cut our date short. Last week, he joked about cheating, and I didn't take it well. He downplayed what he said but didn't apologize. We met 2 nights before Thanksgiving. I bought tickets to our local Christmas-themed park. I wanted us to spend some time together before I went to spend a few days with my family. It was beautiful, and I thought it was incredibly romantic. James didn't want to hold my hand. First, he held mine for a few minutes and then moved away. Then I tried to reach for his hand again. He laughed it off and called me corny. He put his hands inside his jacket. I thought he was playing, but he seemed annoyed. He wasn't abrupt or anything, just made it clear that he didn't want to hold hands. He didn't want the kissing booth. We sat down to eat. I tried to be affectionate, but since he wasn't willing, I gave up because he turned away when I tried to kiss him while inside the car. This had never happened before, but he changed after we talked about the funds. I got home feeling dejected and humiliated and cried because I didn't want to think that everything we've had together was him just pretending. I made a very hasty decision, and I might have jumped the gun. I changed all my locks, gathered all of his personal belongings that he had at my place, just a small bag, and drove to his place to leave them at the door. He called me hours later, but I didn't answer. I just broke up with him via text. I'm currently spending the weekend with my family, and he's been blowing up my phone with voicemails. He sounds frantic and confused, but I plan on staying broken up because I'm embarrassed at his rejection. AITA for not talking it over?